This is Weinkrantz. I'm here with Pat Condon. We've just finished watching some really amazing entrepreneurs show some prototype of some business plans for a 3-day startup. We're in San Antonio. Tell us what you're doing and kind of the vision.
Sure. Well, these 3-day startup events are really awesome. From my perspective, getting a lot of smart people together, working on interesting new ideas is just a breeding ground for a lot of good, kind of the next generation of businesses. And what's exciting to me is a lot of time in the past in San Antonio there wasn't a lot of this sort of startup activity, startup competitions, and I think it's just exciting that it's happening in San Antonio. You don't have to leave town to do this sort of thing. And to me the benefit of these events, maybe a new startup will come out of it, maybe not, but there are a lot of other opportunities for entrepreneurs to meet each other. Possibly co-founders will find each other at these events. They'll meet up with angel investors. Or just get a lot of great mentorship and learning from.
Also, tell us kind of what you're doing with Trinity, kind of the longer-term vision that you have.
Sure. Well, I think one of the, a lot of just really from my past, I met my partners originally for Rackspace at school, at university, and it turns out when you're in college, you have a lot of free time and you meet a lot of new people with a lot of interesting ideas, and that is how some of the best ideas get formed. And I think a lot of startup activity in the technology space, certainly the web space, starts in a university setting. There are a lot of great examples of it. And so, to me, melding the university experience, especially the undergrad university experience, with the business community and the startup community in a certain location like San Antonio is really important.
I'm with Matt Reedy. And Matt, I think you and I have known each other for about 15, 17 years. And, you've started and sold some businesses. You've been involved in several startups. But tonight, you were a judge for 3-day startups here in San Antonio. And describe what it would have been like for you to do this.
I mean, this is incredible. The opportunities nowadays with the internet, with cloud computing, with access to all these resources so inexpensively. You're exactly right. 15 years ago, to start any one of these businesses would have cost you at least $50,000, probably a couple of $100,000 to get them launched, whereas now they could probably get these launched with $5,000 or $10,000. It's just absolutely amazing. They've come such a long way. I'm really excited to see the ideas that came out this weekend.
Yeah, and also just kind of some of your observations about the types of companies that you saw tonight. Any sort of words of advice in general to the entrepreneurs?
Yes, to the entrepreneurs, it's the words of wisdom are: plan on it taking 3 times longer and costing 5 times more than you anticipate. We heard a couple of business ideas saying, "Gee, well, we think we'll try this business model, and if that doesn't work, we'll try this one, or we'll try 2 or 3 simultaneously." And the reality is, you can't do that. It's gonna take one, because that's all the time and money you're going to have, for it. So just plan on it costing a lot more and taking a lot longer than you think it's going to.
Okay, well, thank you so much. So I'm now with John Engates, and John is CTO of Rackspace. And John, one of the things that I saw were some great presentations, but what I didn't see were perhaps some little longer range thinking, and sort of with a CTO mindset. Give some advice maybe to say, hey, this thing works. Do you start with some dedicated servers? Do you start with cloud? What kind of bandwidth? What about security issues? What kind of infrastructure should you look for? And obviously you can go into business today from your dorm room at a place like Trinity, but just sort of some macro view of what you saw tonight and some words of advice for longer term planning.
Sure. So I agree with you that I think that the businesses are a lot of them had great ideas. It was awesome to see some of the creativity that these people came up with, but I think there's a little bit, once you scratch the surface of these businesses, there's a little bit of complexity behind the scenes that they probably haven't thought about. Almost all of them were internet-based businesses or had a internet component to it. And the internet can be a challenge for anyone, especially a startup that thinks they're going to go like a rocket and have a ton of traffic or grow over time into something like a Twitter or a Facebook. Everybody wants to be a Facebook. Now, to do that, you've got to have infrastructure. You've got to have people that know how to run that infrastructure. You have to be ready for the traffic to come. And the good news is that there are services out there that help. At Rackspace, I work for Rackspace, and we have built a lot of capabilities for companies just like these to build their infrastructure on. Cloud computing is the latest iteration of that. Cloud computing really levels the playing field for startups. in fact, the adoption of cloud has really taken off in the realm of startups because it doesn't cost much to get started. You can use your credit card to get infrastructure up and running. You pay for what you use as you use it, and it really maps nicely to your revenue over time. It's sort of a success-based pricing model or a utility-based pricing model that allows you to grow into that infrastructure. So those are things I would start to think about, is really, where am I going to build my business? What am I going to build it on? Who are the people that are going to help me build it? Am I going to hire the developers, or am I going to outsource that to someone? Are they going to be on my team? What technology am I going to use? That's a big question mark. A lot of times people are torn between, do I use .NET or Ruby or Java or one of these different technologies? Honestly, it doesn't matter as long as you have the people to help you build it and the expertise on your team.
And security issues.
Security is a big one too. I think if you think about what a lot of these startups are doing is, they're trying to reach out to consumers. They're trying to integrate with social media, websites, Facebook, whatnot. Whenever you have personal information, you're holding on to somebody's, you're holding their life or their data in your hands, and you do want to make sure security is taken care of. You want to have someone who knows a little bit about security, not just a programmer, but somebody who has a security-minded outlook on things, somebody who's a little bit paranoid around things. And then it doesn't hurt to have someone test your security. Pay for a full-fledged, what they call a penetration test, or an ethical hacking service. Those things are all good in terms of getting people to protect and test their applications.
Okay, well, thanks a lot.
Sure, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Cam Hauser, and I'm one of the directors of 3-Day Startup. And I participated in this event a little over a year and a half ago. Showed up and really was a graduate student in business and really enjoying my studies of entrepreneurship, but I wanted to practice it a little bit more. And I also, more to the point, I wanted to, as a business guy, I felt like I understood that realm pretty well, but I wanted to find other coders and developers who were also interested in doing technical projects. So 3-Day Startup, what was great about it is that it draws from all over college campuses as well as professionals in the community. So there's computer science students, there's design students, there's law students, there's neuroscience, filmmaking from all over. And it's connecting them together for a weekend where we're creating real businesses. So this experience was just one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. And after that, one time, I knew I wanted to become part of the organization and start helping organize it. So I found that being an organizer was actually just as fun as being a participant, and have now since stepped on a much larger role to help oversee the fundraising and expansion as the organization moves forward.
So we're in San Antonio tonight. Describe, I know everyone's always the best one, but do you see any characteristics in San Antonio that are different than Austin, that are different than perhaps Dallas or Berkeley or somewhere else? Then the other is, describe your method.
Sure. Well, as far as San Antonio, what we really love seeing is just the passion and excitement. A lot of these students haven't had access to an event like this ever. This is their first real taste of starting a business from scratch. They've maybe thought about it, but they've never been surrounded by other people who are on the exact same page with the same amount of energy and enthusiasm and a deadline. They've got 3 days to try to make this real. So that has definitely been one of the cool things to see. It seems like San Antonio was very, very hungry for this. And once they were given the opportunity, they went nuts. And it was really awesome to see that.
How many applicants?
We had, I think, around 60 or 70 would be my guess.
And how many made the cut?
We took about 45.
Okay.
Yeah. And so our method and our philosophy is, again, one of the things that we think makes this a really compelling experience, which is we're all about learning by doing. You can read a book, you can read blogs, you can do all these things that are cerebral activities, but that's very different from getting your hands dirty and getting sweaty and dirty and disorganized and really chasing this common goal of doing the basic building blocks of getting a business going. Market validation, pitching, and building early stage prototypes of your business and your product. So again, we emphasize learning by doing.
Okay, great. Well, thanks a lot, and thanks.